Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Pawarumi, a Neo-Aztec shoot 'em up recently released on Steam. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. So the setting for Pawarumi is really interesting and unique. It's set in this alternate reality where pre-Columbian American societies were never tainted or outright destroyed by the West and were allowed to flourish and eventually spread to the entire world. So we now find ourselves in this far-flung future, and let's dive into that. So the game modes we have available are the arcade, the meat of it. There's also a tutorial which explains the game systems pretty well, and then a training mode where you can play the stages you've unlocked in the various difficulties. So we have easy, normal, and hard. In addition to increasing the difficulty, there are different stories and stage orders in the various game modes, adding to quite a bit of replayability for the higher difficulty settings there. So when you start the game itself, you have cutscenes bracketing the stages, kind of giving a little bit of information about it from the perspective of, well, it looks like our ship's codex here, the Jukaru. This is the pilot we play, Axo. We'll go ahead and skip over those for right now to get right into the action. So, what kind of base are we building this beautiful dish on? Well, Pawarumi is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up set in this Neo-Aztec future, and as such it has a really awesome unique presentation done in beautiful 3D landscapes. As far as our ship is concerned, we have 3 weapons which are crucial to the game's main system. Those 3 weapons are the Blue Condor laser, the Green Serpent Gatling, and lastly, the Red Panther missiles. So the laser is a basic, powerful straight shot laser that pierces through enemies. The Gatling is a rapid fire weapon which initially has a spread close by, but as it moves further along it focuses, and the missiles will fire and home in on anything that we lock onto in this red cone that flies in front of the ship. Pretty awesome in and of itself, but we have the unique Trinity mechanics that makes this game really special. So throughout the course of gameplay, you might have already noticed, but there are 3 colors of enemies that go and match the color of the weapons that we have. So each time we're attacking enemies, there's one of 3 different mechanics going on. So if it happens to be an enemy of the same color, so if we're using the Green Gatling on green weapon or green enemies, for example, we're what the game refers to as boosting. So the game uses a shield mechanic rather than lives, and the shield is the meter is located in the bottom left. You'll notice above shield that it has the term boost. So what it's talking about there is if you're shooting, say, a blue enemy with a blue laser, you're boosting. And basically, if you've taken any shield damage, that would be recharging your shield. But there's a drawback to that. Is if you're boosting, you're also boosting the strength of the enemies you're attacking with their elemental weapon. Or rather, I guess elemental is accurate. The weapons themselves are based off of the deities, specifically the Blue Condor, the Green Serpent, and the Red Jaguar. Just that we're drawing these infinite energies from. But anyway, if you're boosting, you're increasing their power, making their shots larger and faster. So you have to be careful, because you can recharge your shield, but doing so brings its own risks as well. Then there are also enemies colors that each weapon is strong against, and that is located in the middle bottom of the HUD. It says Crush, and above that will be the color that you're strong against. And lastly, we have a super weapon, represented by a meter on the bottom right, And if we fire at enemies of that color that's represented there, we'll charge our super meter, which we'll go and use right here. So it's basically a massive homing laser attack, which is really awesome. So we want to be able to use all of our weapons in an efficient manner to keep our health high, deal double damage when possible, and also refill our super attack when we can. So here we find ourselves at the first boss, and like most of the bosses in the game, this boss is made up of segments that are all three of the various energy types. Quickly taking down the boss, we'll move on to stage 2. A little bit more of the story between the stages themselves. So there are so many things about this second stage that are really my favorite bit of the game itself. The Dune Ocean. I love this initial entrance scene as we just blaze across this desert, going and approaching this highway of this futuristic city. Taking out these armed transports? It definitely seems like the city was ready for us if they had this kind of a welcome out for us. So, with the game having 3 different types of weapons, it's really easy to choose a favorite. At least for myself. You can customize your playstyle based off of your needs. But for me, really the Blue Condor laser is my favorite, and I feel like it's one of the ones that has the best utility as well. You have oftentimes enemies will swarm you in small groups, so if you're using a large piercing laser like what the Blue Condor laser is, you'll have an easier time dealing damage to those large swarming groups. But one thing that Pawarumi really is all about is it's about efficient weapon management and knowing when to use the right weapons. The way that the HUD is designed so that it's always helping you learn and know what's effective against what, or what weapon drains what other color, is really helpful, and it just speaks volumes of the thought put into the game's design that was incorporated into the HUD. So this stage is a really beautiful stage to go and fly over. We have these beautiful towers, the jungle, and now this pyramid. Some enemies are definitely safer to drain health from than others. So that's basically what we have when it comes to Pawarumi. The game itself is relatively straightforward, so let's talk a little bit about the minus and the plus flavors. Really, there's not much bad that I can say here about Pawarumi. There are only 5 stages, so that might be one of the few minus flavors I could put forth, but those stages do have a decent length to them. As far as plus flavors though, man, this game's definitely got some good ones. So my biggest plus flavor, I love the game's Trinity weapon mechanics that they have present there. Always having to strategize what weapon you want to use for the current state you're in versus your current enemies is awesome. And then there's also the game's art direction, the unique setting, the presentation. So much of it just screams to the great care that was put into the game itself. This is definitely one that I can give a solid recommendation to. It's one of those games where you can definitely see some of the inspirations there. all those great shoot 'em ups from the 90s. You've got like definitely a really nice like touch of like right off the bat. I kind of felt it was a little bit like Ikaruga and its polarity system, where you have all these unique systems, and it's a matter of using the polarities at the right time. Also using our special weapons at the right time as well. So it's a game that takes so many of these systems and is at the same time both familiar and yet really fresh. A really, really awesome dish. Anyway, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me. And as always, I look forward to seeing you again next week.